before we start, I just want to say that today I'm launching my first online class ever. And as you may have guessed, it's about solo traveling. I talk about everything I've learned over the past few years, and it's now live on Skillshare. So just use the link in the description to watch it for free. More on that later, but now on to the video. So there's this DM that people send me every now and then, and it's always something like, aren't you afraid of traveling alone? And the short answer is, no, not really. But let me give you a better answer. First, you should ask, why would someone even travel alone? Isn't it more fun to travel with somebody else? Well, it depends. It depends on what your goal is. If you're just looking to have fun, yeah, maybe going with somebody is the best option. You'll have a great time together, or not, you never know. But if you want to go beyond that and actually live something that can change you, I would say that the best option is to travel alone. You see, I was fortunate enough to travel to a few countries with my family while I was growing up. But 2 years ago, I decided to go on my first solo trip ever. And among all the reasons, I did it mainly because I so desired the space and freedom to create and explore what exactly I wanted to do and to become. So how does this relate to solo travel and what's so special about it? Well, when you're alone, there are a few things that change. The first and more obvious one is freedom. You are on your own and you can manage your time the way you want, and this is special. And I know it can be a bit overwhelming, especially in the beginning, because there's so much time and so much to see that you don't even know where to start. But as the days go by, you start to get used to it. And I don't want to promise anything, but it's very likely that in the future, you won't have it any other way. Another thing that you don't realize until you actually do it is vulnerability. It's very likely that a local, for example, will approach you and ask, why are you there alone? Where are your friends? Or simply, where are you from? Which in my case usually comes followed by, oh, Ronaldo. This, I would say, is one of the biggest advantages of traveling alone, and it's what will allow you to have the most unique experiences. For example, nobody's going to invite a group of people over, first because it's harder to start a conversation, but it's also difficult to create a connection with a group. Instead, if they see a foreigner wandering around alone, it's easy to start that conversation and create a connection, and maybe you end up having dinner with their family. And finally, feelings. This is a theory of mine, by the way, but I believe that when you're traveling alone, because there's no one to share what you're feeling, that makes the experience way stronger. There's that cultural shock, and it's normal wanting to share that surprise with other people. But by doing this, I think that you're mitigating those feelings. We all know that externalizing a feeling helps to make it less strong. We usually assume this for bad feelings, but I think it works the same the other way around. Let me explain. Imagine that you live your whole life in your own country. You grew up there, you learned your mother tongue, and you got the habits, customs, and traditions from your ancestors. All of this is what I like to call your bubble. It's basically everything that developed your person as you are today. But that bubble, like all the bubbles, is flexible, and it's constantly changing and adapting according to what you experience in your life. Then how does solo travel affect this bubble, you ask? Well, first of all, imagine that you're doing your first trip abroad, but you're not going alone. You're going with your family or with a group of friends. When you do this collectively, I believe that even though you're traveling to a foreign country, the bubble that you live in goes with you. Maybe not completely, it can be thinner depending on how willing you are to accept that new way of being. But having those familiar faces prevents you from completely immersing yourself in the new culture. But when you're alone, there's nothing. There's no one else to share what you're feeling. It's just you and the unknown. Of course, you can always call your mom and tell her about the terrible taste of durian. But it's not the same, because she's not there with you. Slowly, the bubble starts to get thinner and thinner And before you realize it, you're adapting to a new way of living. That culture is not a stranger anymore. You are the stranger and you'll adapt to it because that's what humans do. We adapt because we want to be accepted. So, what's my point with this analogy? Well, first of all, I just want you to know that traveling alone can be amazingly enriching and transformer when done with the right intentions and goals. And then I also want you to know that there's nothing scary about traveling solo, because the more I travel, the more I realize that the world is safer than what appears on the news. And before we end this video, I just want to share with you a quote by Buddha that I very much relate to and goes way beyond solo traveling. He said, "Travel only with thy equals or thy betters. If there are none, travel alone." All right, now back to my class. As you may have guessed, this video was sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online community for creative people where you can find classes on basically any topics, things like filmmaking, photography, music production, and now solo traveling. Over the past month, I sat down and thought about everything that I think it's important for you to know before going on your first solo trip. It's only 23 minutes long, but it explains everything from booking a cheap flight, traveling safely, communicating with locals, or even how to manage your budget for the trip. I would love to know what you think of the class, so if you're interested, you can watch it now on Skillshare for free. Since you're sponsoring this video, the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. And don't worry, you can cancel it anytime, so no commitments. You can watch the class and then cancel your subscription. But anyway, it's really affordable. The annual subscription is less than $10 a month, which is insane for the amount of content that you get access to. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. Let me know what you think of my class. And yeah, that's it from me today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.